To all my fellow YouTubers and Redditors, I've made a mistake. I'm sorry. I forgot to mention in my last video why the Game Boy Advance is unable to natively run Skyrim on its own. Some have said I was misleading or it was clickbait, but that was not my intentions or anything of what I want this channel to be. From here on out, I'll be much more detailed about how I do things and why I do them the way I do. So let's get started. Today, we'll be looking at the Intel Compute Stick and see, can it Skyrim? So this is the Intel Compute Stick first generation running Windows 10. I have had this thing for probably 2 years and I'm really not sure why I even bought it. It's barely been used at all. The appeal of this thing is the portability. Sure, your full gaming rig may have more power than this thing, and I certainly hope it does, but can you put it in your pocket? So here's the specs. 1.33 GHz Intel Atom quad-core processor, 2 gigs of RAM, 32 gigs of onboard storage, Intel graphics, HDMI, and USB 2.0. Has a micro SD card slot as well as Wi-Fi and Bluetooth 4.0. This thing came out in 2015, and even in 2018 is still pretty amazing and really not that expensive. There are newer versions of this for sale now, but you can even buy a Linux version of the last generation for like $45. This thing is not much bigger than an Xbox One wireless controller adapter, and here it is next to an iPhone 10. Pretty small for a desktop computer. I will be plugging the Compute Stick into a very dusty 1080p Acer monitor. This particular monitor doesn't have a USB port capable of powering their Compute Stick, and the cable that came with it is like 3 feet, so I'm using a USB charger I found laying around with a 10-foot USB extension cable to power it. So now it's time to see if this thing will even work. First try, no luck. Monitor says no signal, so I'm guessing that it was the USB charger I used not giving it enough juice. So let's use this iPad charger. That seemed to do the trick, so I got that going for me, which is nice. The Compute Stick only has one USB port, so I will be using this hub to plug in my mouse, my keyboard, and controller. So much for portability, I suppose. Of course, Steam needs to update. Then I need to download Skyrim, which took me about 2 hours for whatever reason, and now I will launch Skyrim. Recommended settings, low quality, but I'm not even mad. Let's try to run this thing at 1080p. Now the first few times I tried, I could never get it to finish loading. But then I realized if I alt-tabbed out of the game and back into it, for some reason it would finish loading. Weird, but okay. So after I figured that out, it worked. Alright, so I'm guessing that this is maybe 5 frames per second, but I need to go download an FPS counter just to be sure. So next, let's load into low settings at 1080 by 720. We will use the City Whiterun as a base for our test. It looks like we still aren't getting a playable frame rate or even a cinematic experience at only 12 frames per second. So let's go ahead and make the settings as low as they can possibly go. Next stop, 800 by 450. We are so close to the bare minimum frame rate of 24 frames per second, but we aren't quite hitting it. As you can see, the CPU has maxed out performance, and it looks like the best we're gonna get is around 21 frames per second. I also noticed that I could actually hear the fan of the Compute Stick when I got done. Listen to this. It's not super noticeable or anything, but it surprised me coming from such a small device. So let's give the Intel Compute Stick a Can It Skyrim score. It maxed out under 24 frames per second on the lowest settings. We had easy to medium difficulty getting it running. So I give it a Can It Skyrim score of 6 out of 10. It can Skyrim, but I wouldn't want to. Thank you so much for watching this video. I was blown away by the amount of subscribers we had after only one video, and I'm so excited to keep making more of these. As always, comment below what device you would like to see if it can Skyrim. I'll see you next time.